Hey guys, how's it going today? If it's anything like me, probably so or meh, you know. But in any case, I was thinking about something that I kind of wanted to share. Thought maybe it could be of use to you. I don't know, especially if you're dealing with the whole schizoid thing, or even if it isn't necessarily that. Any of you schizo-spectrum peeps, when you're feeling kind of down in the dumps, uh, for understatement of the century sometimes. This piece of advice, just thoughts regarding how I handled certain things, might be of use to you. Now, I'm no therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a coach, I'm not any of those things. I'm just a guy that knows a lot about the subject and wants to help people that are dealing with the same kind of shit and trying to make some changes. In any case, so oftentimes, throughout the years when I've gone to therapy, and oftentimes therapy didn't quite uh, wasn't quite able to sort of handle some of the issues that come with this sort of stuff in a more conventional sense. One of the techniques they always talked about, like in regards to something like CBT, was grounding, right? Grounding. What did that usually mean? Usually, when they refer to grounding, they're oftentimes referring to this act of paying attention to your surroundings, right? It's almost like a sort of what a lot of people now refer to as sort of like mindfulness or some shit like that. But basically, it was about grounding yourself, and usually this was used for like anxiety, things like that, right? Panic attacks, shit like that. Um, like paying attention to your fingers, paying attention to specific items around you. So essentially, what you were doing is you were kind of like occupying your executive function to like focus on other shit, so that whatever intrusive thought was getting in you, like just bugging you, um wouldn't just spiral out of control, right? The idea was to like kind of like hijack that executive function and throw it into other things that are around you, right? But many times, especially when I was dealing with my years of panic disorder, I or generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, whatever. Basically every other day was a panic attack. Uh, Whenever I tried using the grounding techniques that they recommended, which were, pay attention to physical objects, things around you, stuff like that, to kind of, according to them, kind of situate yourself. But what's really, like I said, what's really happening is you're kind of just occupying your executive functions, so that your working memory kind of just, it doesn't start just all leaning toward the intrusive thought that's going to cause you a significant amount of distress. That's pretty much what I think is happening. But it wouldn't work, is what I'm saying. I'm going around in circles here, but it wouldn't work. So I would look at the floor, I would look at my mouse, I would look at my keyboard as my heart was beating faster, as I was having racing thoughts about, I don't know, existential dread, or um, feeling disassociated, or all kinds of reasons that somebody like me would have been panicking. And it wouldn't work, right? If anything, it would sometimes make me feel worse. Now, if it works for you, well, good, keep it up. But for me, it just wouldn't work. Trying to like make myself be more physically present, right? Like with just the, whatever innocuous things are around me, the lights, the camera, the curtains, whatever, just trying to focus on my breathing, right? Let's just say even my breathing, right? They would say, focus on your breathing, right? Right, and then focus on the breathe and thought of the breath and all that kind of stuff. It just wouldn't work for me. Usually it just made me more anxious, or it wasn't enough to distract me. It wasn't distracting me. If anything, it was just causing me more confusion or more panic for some reason. That was my experience with that type of grounding. So I was thinking, all right, what did I do? Right? What part of the grounding thing, as they like to call it, did I use for myself that worked for me, that made any sense? Now, and sorry if I'm using the grounding stuff and the CBT related stuff like this incorrectly or something. I'm just basing it off my own experiences, what other people have told me their experiences are, and my with this style of therapy and this aspect of it. Okay, like I said, I'm just an armchair loser that's trying to help out. And so what I did is I started, and I didn't initially realize why this was working. I just so saw it was working, right? I started focusing on concepts or ideas that brought me comfort. Um, and not so much comfort like, oh, it's cozy, but maybe a combination of ideas or concepts or symbols that made me feel safer, but also more uh, diligent, more kind of almost not hostile, but like more like it would just give me a sense of wherewithal, like a second wind or something, right? Like because what was haunting me and what was fucking with me and what was causing me a lot of distress, anxiety wise, were these kind of really abstract thoughts about all kinds of shit, right? And my place in the universe, or my place in even the world around me and humanity, and bigger concerns of what does it matter if I even, and will I ever, and this, I am cursed in this way, or I will forever be in a state of terror. Like it was just like these kind of ideas um, that would haunt me and trigger panic attacks and leave me just very low functioning that day. And so I just thought, okay, well, why not combat it or use this grounding thing with similar types of ideas? Um, and I'm not saying, oh, that's all there was to it, right? Obviously, I was at the same time I was taking medication that was taking some of the edge off, but it just wasn't cutting it by itself. And so then I started thinking about reinforcing ideas and concepts, symbols. You know, it wasn't people necessarily, like specific people or characters or whatever. If that works for you, cool. It was just ideas behind things that made me feel like it gave me a sense of hope, gave me a sense of courage, even like tenacity, right? I started thinking about, like in my case, I was thinking about like certain types of characters, ideals, or concepts that are in narratives that made me feel like I wanted to fight. I wanted to overcome death itself. Something made me almost feel like temporarily. Um, I don't want to say manic, but you know what I mean. Like it was like a hit of like cognitive cocaine, because I wasn't obviously doing anything. It was just like something that would just make me go, yeah, fuck it. Like this idea, this concept, this spite, this something, this whatever works for you, whatever symbol, whatever gives you some sense of fuck you, I'm not going down. um and it's what helped me a significant amount to over time overcome this panic disorder. I mean, I haven't had a panic attack in years, but I was having them, like, I'm talking like every couple days, maybe more than once every couple of days, like once a day, some weeks. Yeah, it was really shit. Couldn't fall asleep, having them at night, waking up with them, whatever. I was just in a constant state of tremor and fucking terror. And for me, it was a combination of medication. And if that doesn't work for you, then obviously that doesn't work for you. I'm just talking about myself. And this kind of latching on to some ideal or concept that felt self egosyntonic, right? Because all the intrusive thoughts that were causing me a lot of distress and panic, I felt all ego dystonic, right? It was like tearing me apart. And so it's almost like I had to combat the type of terror with the um, strength, ideas, concepts, whatever, symbols, metaphors, right? Whatever works. And I think part of it, in my case, and it might be in some of yours, is that schizo-spectrum sort of thinking I'm always mentioning. It's this kind of more abstract, meta sort of pattern recognition that my brain just automatically leans into, no matter what I'm doing, even if it's just silly shit, right? Even if I'm totally calm, it doesn't always just spiral into like oblivion. But you know what I'm saying? Like my thinking when I approach problems, when I analyze content I like, any kind, when I assess a situation, oftentimes that's where my brain likes to recognize patterns and make connect dots, right? So it wouldn't make sense for me to go to an unintuitive place to try and, ground myself or what have you. Sorry about that. If there's a hiccup, it's because my little 3-year-old ran in here in the middle of my sentence. Now to get back, and I'm too tired to edit that out. So because it gives a shit anyway. Um, but yeah, it didn't make sense to me that I would approach the type of grounding that would be of any use to me in a way that was unintuitive or didn't wasn't where I would normally go in my mind, in myself, to find a sense of peace, right? A place of peace for me, oddly, right? And like I said, it could be different for everybody. Place of peace for me would be the idea of taking that very fear, that very panic, and turning it into something that I could shred and tear and consume, right? It was almost like a somewhat violent nature of approaching my own fear that allowed me to sort of actively do something against it, hurt it, make it scream, instead of it making me scream. So that's something that sort of worked, right? Other times, especially when it was sleep, right? Obviously, that approach wasn't more very conducive to, like, you know wanting to, especially if you're tired and you haven't slept for hours or your insomnia is kicked off. Like, you really want to sleep, and what's keeping you up is, like, every time you lay down and you try to relax, it's just like all these kind of intrusive or anxious thoughts start creeping into your head, and then you might as well just fucking stay awake because you just fucking can't sleep. And so the way I would deal with those is, like, sometimes I'd play some music that I felt was kind of peaceful, and then I would go to a place mentally where I surrounded myself by things that brought me comfort internally. Like, in some cases, it can be your imagination, or you can just contemplate a certain thing. And so I would think about being dressed in a large robe, kind of like I don't know if I'm a big nerd, so, like, kind of like a black mage from Final Fantasy, like with the big brimmed hat and the big robe, and you're totally covered up, and the only thing poking out is your eyes. And I like to imagine myself wearing something like that under a very, very large, low, not high, but a very large, low hanging, sort of wide around tree. So another kind of brim cover from the outside world to the sky. And so and then I would imagine myself reading. Now, what I'd be reading is whatever was interesting to me at that time, right? So just pretend I was reading passages from something that was recently interesting to me, right? And so, or an idea or a concept or a philosophical thingamabob or something, whatever works for you. It could be world building of some kind, or stories of certain kind, or maybe I don't know, whatever functions for you. In any case, and so that idea, along with some of the music, I didn't always need the music. After initially, the music was useful, and then after a while, I just didn't even need it. I just needed the thought. I would just kind of drift into internal parts of myself, my internal world, as often is referred to for schizoids, to the places, the recesses in which I found comfort and at least a little bit of respite. Right. It was like a entering a feeling, an idea, more than it was a specific place, right? A specific tree, a specific book, a specific wardrobe, a specific peoples I was discussing anything with. No, it was like entering. I don't know how to describe it. An essence of sorts. I don't know. I might sound just completely fucking bugged out describing it that way, but in any case, that's what worked for me, and I got better at it. And I noticed I had even I at the time, it wasn't with my current psychologist, but at the time when I saw that it was working, I didn't share that with my therapist, right? Because I didn't really think my therapist understood what it is. So I would often get, like, what my therapist was trying to do, and then I would just sort of turn it into something that made sense to me and the way my neurodivergent brain would kind of interpret stuff. And then I would get the idea of what it is they're attempting to do, and then I would turn it into something that made sense to me. And when I would try to explain it to them, it was really hard for them to grasp, or they couldn't quite work with it. Luckily, my current psychologist can for that kind of stuff in general, but couldn't quite work with it. And so I would just kind of keep it to myself. And then I also, at the time, I had this kind of belief, which, it's funny now, and this was in my 20s. I had this belief that, like, oh, if I told my therapist, it would make it be outside of me. And so thus its power or its ability to help would just, like, now that someone knew about it, or I put it out there, it would stop working. And then the next time I would go, and just that idea, that concept alone would make me go, even if obviously that's absurd, the fact that I think that's something that could happen in some absurd way might make it work less. So I kept it a secret, right? I kept it a secret. Now, if you have to keep that place, that concept, that idea that keeps you a sense of comfort, to staves off some aspects of fear and terror, if you're suffering with anxiety or other symptoms that are difficult to entail, that you need some peace, if it requires you kind of just keeping it to yourself, I don't see anything personally wrong with that. That's my opinion. As long as it helps you get through the day, it helps you get through life, and lets you be as functional as you wish to be, as you want it to be, so that you can do the things that you want to do with this very confusing life at times. Okay, well, that was my piece of advice for the day. I don't know if that's useful. If you liked what I had to say, please leave a comment in the bottom or whatever. Do a comment, like it, do the stupid like, do the stupid comments. Be like, oh, even if, like, you don't want to say anything, just put, like, cool video, bro. Like, that just helps the algo bullshit. And then also, I have a Twitch, so I stream on Twitch under the same name, Schizoid Angst. Links are in the About Me, I believe. So you can follow me there. Please do. It's really useful. I do streams Tuesday, Thursday, and sometimes Saturday or Sunday. It just depends on what's going on that weekend. As well, I would appreciate anybody that already watches me, that liked the video I recently uploaded with that wonderful, wonderful computational psych, Laura. Oh my God. I can never say it the way it's supposed to be said. It's It's not Laura. It's not Laura. It's like something else, and I can never remember it because it's not like a Spanish variation or an English variation. It's like, anyway, whatever. I'm dumb. In any case, watch that video. It's really good. Very intelligent person with really cool insights. So check it out. And I will have more interviews. I will have more videos like this, hopefully, and more things for you guys. If you are a patron already, because I do have a Patreon, please give me suggestions for things that you want me to talk about or whatever, or especially DM me on Patreon itself so that I know to give, your comments or your suggestions priority since you're supporting. And if you don't like Patreon, any of that shit, just PayPal, put a message in there, whatever. Or I think I have a coffee also listed here. So anything helps, guys. Anything helps toward the projects, and I have a lot of shit I'm working on. Okay, peace out, guys. Oh, and as usual, when day is dark, always remember, happy day.